You never want China to be an enemy. It's just太麻烦. Well, it's too big. You don't want to be too close to China either. Because if you're too close, you have no freedom.
Does the current trade war and the shifts in the global order, the sensitivities, the uncertainties, does it worry you for Singapore, for the prosperity of this region, including China?
I see something which may sound surprising. It is good that we have a trade war and not a real war. Because the trial of strength between the US and China will have to go through a process lasting many years. And there will be many anxious moments. And in some of those anxious moments, there could be physical conflict and people could die. A trade war is good because it's only about money. And both sides can really manage it. Trump said, I decide. Because if the deal is something I'm happy with, we have a deal. China can also decide. If you are a businessman, if you are an individual, you may be hurt. But you only hurt in your pocket. You're not bloodied.
Remember on the first day after you arrived, we were having dinner, you said, actually, Albert, if you can back me up, we actually decided that we don't dislike Trump, like on a personal level. And I would say that most Chinese people, or at least the sentiment on the ground, online, is that people actually do not dislike Trump. And my take on that is, for China now, I think respect and honesty and honor means more than the physical interest, because what the Democrats or the United States used to do for the longest period of time after World War II is, including this time what was revealed about USAID, what they were doing around the world. That is claiming moral supremacy over other civilizations is what the Chinese people cannot live with. That's what they hated. So where Trump is, gloves off, let's fight. The Chinese people actually are okay with that.
And actually, from my point of view, that I think Trump is actually easier the counterpart. Trump is actually a much easier one to deal with.
No, I think you're right. They were operating a very sophisticated system. They thought they could dominate the world. And therefore, they should dominate China. China refused. Then, for complex reasons, instead of concentrating on China, by keeping close to Russia, they went after Russia. And this is China's good fortune. Then you had the Middle East. Both Ukraine and the Middle East, Gaza, are distant wars for China. China is not directly involved.
Yeah.
And they've taken the heat away from China. But throughout this period, the internal difficulties of the US got worse. The deficit increased, the social problems increased. And Trump was voted on the platform to revive American manufacturing, to solve the drug problem, to reduce the deficit. So he has no grand conception of US dominating the world. Secretary Rubio was the first Secretary of State to say that we are living in a multipolar world.
Yeah.
This is a big concession that the US administration has made. Future US administrations will have to work within this framework. It is a reality. And once you think in terms of multipolar framework, your strategy and your tactical moves all change. And we're seeing that in Trump. Now, Mao Zedong once said that he much preferred to work with Republican presidents than Democrat presidents because they are much more honest. And in the case of Trump, he's not ideological.
Exactly.
You can deal with him. He's got a bottom line.
Yeah, he's very honest about what he wants and what measures he's going to take in order to get that. And there is no ideological supremacy. There is no hypocrisy. There is no intellectual control, mind control games that he plays there.
But he's a bully.
Yes.
Yeah, he is a bully.
He's a bully.
Yeah.
And his negotiating style is very aggressive. It's quite scary. I met a former Korean minister. He said, if Trump wants $2, he'll ask for 10. And he'll scream at you.
Yeah.
And you're so anxious. So in the end, you say, okay, you settle for $3. Trump has got $3 instead of 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're so happy that you're only giving him 3
Yeah.
and not 10. You see, that's how he negotiates.
Okay, where does Southeast Asian, ASEAN countries, Singapore, China stand with this bullying style of negotiators? There was a meme circulating somewhere, I forgot where, I just came across it. It said, I think it's a comedian or something. He said, hey, I know, Trump, you wrote The Art of Deal, but remember, China, they wrote The Art of War.
So who said that? A Singaporean?
No, an American comedian, one of those.
That's quite funny.
Yeah, one of those funny shows. Yeah, it was just a funny thing that I remembered. So where do we stand against a negotiating bully?
Now, if you're a small guy
Yeah.
and there's a bully walking around, just stay in the corner, don't attract his attention.
Okay.
It's not worth the while to attract his attention.
But
if you have no choice,
Yeah,
and he's
that's
going
why-
after you,
Yeah.
then you've got to stand up to him. Because if you show weakness to a bully, he'll bully you more. Now, if you stand up to a bully, he may give you a punch in the face. Okay, you take the bruise. And you hit back, and then he'll be more careful next time. But of course, in the case of Singapore, we have ASEAN. And if there's a group of us who stay together, it's harder for him to bully us.
okay.
So ASEAN will become stronger, and ASEAN is getting stronger. Yeah. So Singapore's strategy is very simple. Try not to attract attention and work with ASEAN.
Do you think Singapore and the ASEAN countries are at some point going to be forced to pick a lane between China and the United States? Because it seems like in the world order today, yes, multipolar, but increasingly sort of parallel lanes of parallel worlds emerging.
For all 10 Southeast Asian countries, an ascendant China is something we have seen repeatedly in history. So whether you're Thailand or Vietnam or Indonesia, you have a historical memory of China and how it behaves when it is strong. You never want China to be an enemy. It's just taimafan. Well, it's too big. You don't want to be too close to China either. Because if you're too close, you have no freedom.
Okay.
So the instinct of Southeast Asia is trade is good, investments are good relations are important, but maintain a certain formality
Okay.
and have other friends around. No, Zhu Rongji, China's premier, very wise man. In the year 2000, when ASEAN countries were reeling from the Asian financial crisis, he offered a free trade agreement to ASEAN leaders. I was there in Singapore, year 2000, November. And ASEAN leaders did not know how to react. I was trade minister. The following year, when the trade ministers met in Hernay, I said, China wants it politically. Ask for an early harvest, a concession. Singapore did not benefit because it was for in agriculture and in natural resources.
Right.
Okay.
But I wanted a moral position. That I'm not asking this for Singapore. I'm asking this for the other 9. They agreed. China agreed. Later on, I spoke to Long Yong-tu. Long Yong-tu said, Premier Chu said, whatever ASEAN wanted, give to them. I read it correctly. Then the following year, in Jingbian, we signed a framework agreement. And Zhu Rongji made 2 remarks. He said, if after 10 years the agreement is in China's favor, we will renegotiate it. 这么大方的态度, I couldn't believe it, you know. I said, that's very good. Then he made a second remark, even more important. He said, China does not seek for itself an exclusive position in ASEAN. He meant that we will never ask you to choose your friends, so long as you are my friend. So if the Americans come here and tell us, you choose between China and us, I tell my American friends, you ask that question, you may not like the answer. So I suggest you don't ask that question. So the Americans openly said, we don't ask ASEAN countries to choose, but privately,
But probably they do.
on specific issues, they put pressure.
Oh, however, I really like your what you say that because from the historical perspective, the ASEAN countries, they remember when China was powerful, and if you stay too close, you lose freedom. However, if we really look into history, China only had war with Vietnam and Cambodia during the Qing dynasty and Ming dynasty. Ming invaded Vietnam and Qing invaded.
Maintain.
Myanmar. Yes. And besides that, China actually didn't interfere with their local business at all. All the Chinese emperor asked was tribute, and not just very often, like 1 year or 2 year or 3 year for once. And actually, every time when they go tribute to the emperor gives much more than the tributary. So, is it a historical misunderstanding? How is this mentality was formed?
Firstly, the word tributary, tribute, is a wrong word for Cao Gong. The leaders of Moscow paid tribute to the Golden Horde.
Oh, sure.
It was a ransom. I give you money so that you protect me and you don't disturb me. Dubrovnik paid tribute to the Sultan, again for protection. The Chinese system was, you Cao Gong, you get trading benefits.
Yeah.
It is not payment.
Yeah.
It is to receive payment.
Yes.
In return for respect.
Yes.
Southeast Asian countries realized that in the Chinese mind, face is very important. So whenever they meet Chinese leaders, whenever they come to Beijing, they say such sweet things about China. And Chinese leaders are so happy. They say, well, yeah, they respect us. But when they go back home and they talk to their own people, I know because I talk to them. They say, no, China is, they don't say bully, but sometimes China puts a lot of pressure on us and they're very tough and so on. It's important for China to understand this.
But what Albert's trying to ask is that where does that perception come from? With the lack of physical war in history, where does that perception come from? Is it self-imposed or how?
You're talking about Southeast Asia or talking about China?
No, Southeast Asia is
Southeast Asia.
somewhat sort of like, let's stay slightly away from China. Where does that come from? I wouldn't go as far as use the word fear, but like you described, people are sensitive about their relationship with China.
No, because China is big and China has an enormous market.
Okay.
And if China likes you, it can make you very happy.
Right. Okay.
And if China dislikes you, it can feel a lot of pain.
So it's just a natural progression of power disparity.
No, it's like ordinary people when they meet a very rich man, they behave nice to the rich man because the rich man can give you a hong pao or something and suddenly you're very happy.
Okay.
Or he can take away your license or your rental and then suddenly you're in trouble. And China, in Chinese statecraft, and this is from Pingfa, never use military force unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And try to achieve your objective without military force. Of course, you need military power, but don't use it. And the best weapon is economic. So when China says, oh, we are in favor of free trade and so on, I said for certain things, China has always used trade for statecraft. When the Americans have the CHIP Act to deny China technology, now think about this. China kept the secret of making paper and the secret of making silk for many centuries. You're not allowed to betray this secret to foreigners. And it gave China a huge advantage. The silk trade, we know, was an important source of revenue. Paper is like today's computer. With paper, you can record, process data, organize more people, regulate flood control, understand climate change. China had a monopoly for centuries. So this gave China an enormous advantage and why it's always been able to organize more people on Earth. So if the Americans say, I don't want to give you chips, I don't want to teach you this or that, of course. Because if China has such knowledge, China will also not want to share with other people. So this is, to me, normal. not unusual. The politicization of trade is also normal. It's not unusual. So relax.
Yeah.
The important thing is we're not killing each other.
Yes.